Good afternoon, brothers. My camera is in the wrong place. Fix this. There we go. How are you guys doing? Let's see if it looks like you can hear me okay. Yeah, please give me a shout out in the chat if you can hear me okay. Hey Adam. Hey Michael. Hey Reziel. Hey Himashi. Tony. And Zacharias. How you guys doing? We're going to get into it in just a second. Let me just modify this so we can make sure that we can see everything alright. So yeah, as always, on the Army List show, we got 4 Army Lists to look at today. A couple from members, couple from non-members. Thanks for the sound check. Anthony Heatley, Kevin, and then Adrian Despo, I guess, and D-King. There's always names in here that trip me up literally every week, so if I say anyone's name wrong, I'm very sorry about that. And if you want to submit your list to the show, which, you know, anyone can do, members or non-members, just the queue for members is a lot shorter than non-members right now. What you do is you find the Blood Angels Commander YouTube channel, and you go to the community tab, so it's like 4 tabs along here. And in the latest community one, so the community one at the moment, the latest one is about the elite list that we launched on Friday, which was actually, people loved this elite video, so thank you Tony and Mark for helping me record that. And just put your list, hit comment here, and put your list in as a comment, and I will find it and we'll pick it up and add you to the queue for the Army List. And if you enjoy today's stream, or if you enjoy any of my videos, it's always really appreciated if you hit the like button. The YouTube algorithm likes people likes videos that get likes, so appreciate that. Hey Benjamin, hello. And cool. Yeah, so I thought we'd get straight into the lists today, and we'll start with Anthony Heatley. And content coming up on the channel this week. We will have the next we will have the next HQ video ready for the tier list sooner rather than later, so you'll get that probably sometime next week. And I've got a couple other videos in the works. We've got the video about Dante coming, and I think we're going to have another video about Battle Sector. I might film a little video about Battle Sector tonight, and I do have a code to give away for Battle Sector, so I guess make sure you check out the Battle Sector video, and we'll be giving away a code to someone at the end of that video. Okay, so Anthony Heatley's list then. Let's start here, and this is obviously battalion detachment. So we're looking at 3 troops, and we got 1 extra relic, and we got Angel's Ascendant. Angel's Ascendant is where you give a sergeant in a squad. I think it's like Quake Bolts, Mastercrafted Weapon, or something like that. I imagine it's going to be Quake Bolts somewhere around. Cool, so we start with the Chapter Master, and this will be a jump pack Chapter Master in 170 points. Gift of Foresight, Chapter Master, Mastercrafted Weapon, Relic Blade. So a Mastercrafted Relic Blade. So essentially it's just a Mastercrafted Relic Blade is essentially Strength 7, 3 damage, minus 3 AP. So kind of 1 less strength than a Thunderhammer, but 1 more AP. And Rites of War, I guess, is his second Warlord trait, so that he can give OBSEC to units around him. So pretty interesting Chapter Master. I like this Chapter Master a lot. This one must have I'm going to say he's got a Storm Shield, yeah. So we've still got him buffed to the 2+ save, and I think it's nice to give them that 2+ save, because I do it with Angel's Artifice, right? But I think having the 2+ save just makes you a lot tankier against small arms fire, and I think it's worth having, right? We then have a Librarian with Veil of Time and Psychic Fortress, and he has also the jump pack, so the mobile Librarian that a lot of people love at the moment. And then the Sanguinary Priest, Selfless Healer, coming in at 155 points, which is expensive, but with the right list you can get value out of it. I'm actually going to try 2 lists in the near future. I've been running Selfless Healer even since they put it up to 155 points, but I also think that there may be a play now where a Primaris Tech Marine would be a good shout. And if you watch the Elite Tier video, then you'll realise that the Primaris Tech Marine is actually kind of good. 8 attacks on the Primaris Tech Marine, and most of them are with pretty nasty weapons. So I guess if you want to, I think there's two choices now. I think you run an infantry-centric list and you take the Sanguinary Priest, or you run a vehicle-centric list. And maybe vehicles, I mean dreadnoughts, really. Like, because we didn't think very many of the vehicles are very good at all, right? So you run a dreadnought-centric list and you take a Tech Marine. Now, because it's a battalion, we need 3 troop choices. So we've got Incursors, Infiltrators, and Intercessors. And the Intercessors are pretty much standard as you expect. Auto bolt rifle, chain sword on the captain. Oh, they're in the HQ list that people haven't seen yet. Sorry, yes, you're right, Mark, because we filmed it but haven't released it. Okay, they will be coming soon. Okay, I'll need to remember that. We then have Blade Guard Veterans, 5 guys at 175 points, and they're just armed as they are, heavy bolt pistol and mastercrafted swords. The Judiciar with the Hero of the Chapter Armor Indomitus. It seems like a strange choice on the Judiciar. Armor Indomitus, I guess, makes him more survivable at range, and he doesn't have an invulnerable save at range, right? I've been thinking about running the Jump Pack Librarian. There's a lot of people that run that Jump Pack Librarian. There's a lot of good powers you can get the Space Marine Discipline. The Space Marine Psychic Discipline gives you access to a lot of good powers, actually. So the common way that the GDCR gets run is with Selfless Valor. So you can get that long heroic intervention, and then you can use your Fight Last. I guess the Armor Indomitus makes them more survivable, but I guess you have to be really clever with your placement. Hey Jeff, how you doing? Hi. Oh, hey Anthony, thanks for hanging out. I don't have a whirlwind. Yeah, I don't think the Judiciar is a bad pick at all. Like, I think if you don't have a whirlwind, he's a great pick. I just think that maybe he's better with Selfless Valor, because you get to heroically intervene 6, and then you can pick a unit within 3 inches to fight last. Remember, when you heroically intervene, you do not have to end in engagement range. So you could heroically intervene and stay out of engagement range, make an enemy unit fight first, or fight last, sorry, have your unit that they're in combat with fight them, and if you feel it's now safe for Judiciar to activate and join, you could do that, otherwise you could leave him out, right? I need to double check the ruling. If you leave him, someone in chat, tell me. I know when you heroically intervene, you do not have to end with engagement range. If you're not in engagement range, though, do you get to activate? That's a question. Making close combat attacks, which models fight? Pile in. When a unit piles in, you can move up to 3 inches. I gotta find the heroic intervention part. Oh, it's probably just the page before, is it? Heroic interventions. Select one character to perform a heroic intervention. Cannot perform a heroic intervention if enemy units are within engagement range. Must be an enemy unit within 3 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically. With Selfless Valor, that would be 6 inches. Select one character to perform intervention. Once all your characters' units have performed heroic interventions, progress to the fight phase. And then in the fight phase, the first thing you do in the fight phase is pile in, right? Yeah. A lot of people in chat. Judicar is better with Selfless Valor for sure. The Judic here, he's given him a relic. Sure. So I mean, you could actually keep the. Oh, you've paid for Hero of the Chapter, but you've given him a relic. You would pay for Relic of the Chapter here if it was a relic, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, the thing that's important here is, I mean, you could pay for both, right? You could give him a relic and a Hero of the Chapter, so you would change this relics to 2 up here, and you would remove Hero of the Chapter. But if you need him to be survivable, for sure, I suppose, keep Armor Indomitus. But Selfless Valor means that I disagree, Mark, because it says So it says that after you've heroically intervened, you progress to the fight phase. When you select a unit to fight, it first piles in. So you can pile into up to 3 inches, right? So you could... I think you can be very strategic with your... You can be very strategic with your placement of that Judasar with the 6-inch heroic intervention, and then make an enemy fight last. And potentially, if you need to stay out of engagement range, you could potentially do that. And that's something that I hadn't realised till recently, that when you perform a heroic intervention, you do not need to end in engagement range. So you can stay outside engagement range and make the enemy fight last, which might be important if you don't think you can kill the enemy. You don't want to just lose your Judasar, right? So you could keep him out, make the enemy fight last, and then choose next turn if you're going to charge him or if you're not going to charge him. Okay. Redemptor Dreadnought, Fragstorm, Rocket Pods, Macroplasma, and Onslaught, which is fine, I think. There is a question mark around running one Dreadnought. You know, we talk about it a lot. Like, if you're going to run one, it's maybe better to run two. Hey Kevin, how you doing? I tried running one in a list for a little while here, and it wasn't so good. So I've gone back to trying to run two. I don't know why one... I think when you have one, it makes like that one big target for the enemies to focus on, but when you have two, maybe they're more likely to maybe they're more likely to split fire, or they get overloaded with threats. Mastercrafting a sword isn't a bad idea. I mean, I guess the Executioner Relic Blade is pretty good as well. But, I mean, if maybe there's something to say about you just want your Judasar to survive. Okay, we then have a squad of Sangre Guard, and it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Wow, okay, we don't see too many squads of 9. 4 swords, 4 axes, another sword, and then an Infernal Pistol. I mean, I like it. If you have another couple of models with axes, I'd probably lean a little bit more towards axes. Just because I think against orcs, custodes, Death Guard, axes are going to be starting to push ahead. I mean, against Gravis units as well, axes push ahead. So if you have axes, then I would probably push towards more axes. But I mean, at the moment, I'm running 4 axes and 4 swords on my list. I might go 5 and 3 on favor of axes, but yeah, I mean, it's not a huge difference between the two of them. Vanguard Veteran Squad with Lightning Claws and a Relic Blade on the Sergeant. How many points was this exactly? 2,000, okay. I think if you could find 2 points, it would be nice if this Relic Blade was a Thunderhammer, but I mean, a Relic Blade's okay as well. 1 attack bike, 3 assault bolter inceptors, 1 invader ATV, and then 1 squad of eliminators. So I think you have a decent balance here, right? Like the invader ATV, the attack bikes. I actually wonder if it's a little bit sad that it's just 1 bike, because like 1 bike means you've got no real opportunity to get any resurrections from the Sangre Priest on this 1 bike. So it'd almost be better, I think, if it was 2 attack bikes, maybe. The only thing I'm thinking you could drop is you could drop 1 Sangre Guard. 9 does feel like it's probably pushing. I suppose it depends, right? Like, if you keep the Sangre Guard within your Warlord's aura so that they're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, then 8, I run 8, and they tend to just massacre just about anything they're in with. But that's because I always try and keep them within the bubble to get hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s from my Warlord, which my Warlord is a Chapter Master as well, right? So I guess you could save 32 points there. And then does 32 points let you... What's 85 plus 32? 117? Yeah, and then you're only like 3 points short of changing this to 3 attack bikes, and 3 attack bikes gives you options to get resurrections. To get 3 points, I guess you could drop 1 Lightning Claw on the Vanguard Veterans, which is actually not bad, because when you think about the Vanguard Veterans, a model is always going to die. So if the first model to die is the Chainsword model, which is arguably the cheapest model, that's actually not a bad thing. But overall, right, Eliminators, there's a nice little bit of threat there. Snipe key enemy targets. So you've taken Quake Bolts on Eliminator Sergeant. I missed that, sorry. Okay. I think there's a lot of strength in the Investigator Bolt Carbine on the Eliminator Sergeant, and that the Eliminators can move, shoot, and move, and then charge. I mean, they're the only unit that we've got that potentially can get like a double move. So a 6-inch move, they shoot, another 6-inch move. I guess if you're going to keep them back and try and Quake Bolt something, then maybe it's okay. Like, maybe it's irrelevant. Just the one nice thing about the Instigator Carbine as well is it's an assault weapon, so you could move, advance, and shoot. Whereas you're going to be, which would be -1 to hit as well, same as Eliminator if you moved and shoot, but it gives you a little bit more. Gives you a little bit more mobility. I guess, if you play your Eliminators, if they feel like they're not mobile enough, think about the Instigator Bolt Carbine, because that's what I've been using. It's kind of... So I think I've run it in 3 games now, and I think the first 2 games I didn't really use it properly, but because it was a new rule for me. But now that I'm sort of figuring it out, I actually think there's like a lot of power in it. And let me see if I can just pull it up so you can see it here. It's just here, covering fire. In your shooting phase, after this unit is shot, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units and it contains the Eliminator Sergeant equipped with the Instigator Bolt Carbine, it may make a normal move as if it were in your shooting phase. This also lets you move out of cover, shoot, and then move back into cover. Which is interesting as well, but you do sacrifice 12 inches in range, I guess, if you wanted to take this. So if you're gonna try and combo that with Quake Bolts, I guess you'd have to be aware that you're gonna lose 12 inches of range. But losing 12 inches of range where you potentially have the ability to do a double move for the entire game might be better. So that's something to consider. And yeah, Mark's right. You wouldn't be able to fire the other sniper rifles if you advanced, but maybe there's something to consider with it on the Instigator Bolt Rifle. Anyway, so shooting wise, I guess we've got our Dreadnought, we've got 1 attack bike, we've got 1 Invader ATV, and we've got the Inceptors. And I kind of like these Inceptors at 120 points. I think they're decent. I think the Plasma Inceptors for me are just too costly, especially that you need to synergize them with some sort of reroll ones to make them worthwhile now. So, yeah, okay. So I mean, the core of this list is the Blade Guards, the Sanguinary Guard, the Vanguard Veterans, and then the 3 troop choices, which gives you a lot of options for actions. And I guess you've got 4 characters as well, and you've got the Fight Last in there. So if you don't open a Whirlwind, then I think this is pretty good. I think the attack bikes and Invader ATVs could be optimized a little. I think I would be happier with like 2. I would either run 2 Invader ATVs or 3 attack bikes. And to do that, I think you have to drop 1 Sanguinary Guard. But like I said, I think 8 Sanguinary Guard do a lot of work if they're positioned well on the board, and either get Chapter Master rerolls or get the rerolls to 1. Get the +1 to hit from being near the warlord. Yeah, because I think 1 attack bike with 4 wounds is just going to be deleted fairly easily. And then the Inceptors and the Dreadnought. So you have a little bit of heavy firepower there. What else are people saying? Reziel says, I usually put Quake Bolts on the Jump Librarian with a 12-inch movement plus 24-inch range and a visible target. What does the Jump Librarian have? Has he just got a bolt? He's just got a bolt pistol, so where are you getting 24 from? Can you give him a bolt gun, can you? Or do you give him a combi weapon? I don't know. The nice thing about putting it on eliminators, I guess, is that they've got that 2-up ballistic skill, right? This bolt pistol can be replaced with one of the following. Okay, so you can take a bolt gun on your regular librarian. He is still 3-up ballistic skill, though. Yeah. I think I like the Instigator carbine a lot. You know, move 6, shoot on 2+, then potentially move another 6. Sure, your 2 guys on heavy weapons are. I think the problem is that the heavies potentially end up like eliminators for me. If they end up on a building sniping, because you want them in cover usually when you're sniping, the enemy's going to try and move around that building and not give you good line of sight. So you potentially, at some points, you're going to have to move the eliminators. So if you have to end up moving them, I think the Instigator. The other interesting thing with the Instigator carbine, though, as well, is you could shoot them before having moved them, so they hit on their 2+ with the heavies, and then move them after they've shot for 6 inches. So you can reposition them after they've shot and keep their ballistic skill on 2s, basically. Quake bolts, you only ever make one single shot, Adam, so it doesn't matter if your gun's rapid fire or anything like that, you can only roll for a single shot with a quake bolt. So that's, I forget the wording, but that's definitely what it says. It says quake bolts. If you do, you can only make one attack with that weapon, but if a hit is scored, the target is felled. So, yeah, I've not used quake bolts myself, but I think it's a pretty cool ability for sure. And having it on something like the eliminators makes a lot of sense. The 2, I think, although you're saying it's fine on a 3+ ballistic skill, I think that the 2+ will just be a lot more reliable, right? This is why you follow the eliminators with Phobos Captain where possible if you want to go all out and give them target priority. Yeah, I mean, the Phobos Captain with eliminators is pretty good. Some people generally run that. Okay, what else is there to say? Auto bolt rifle, intercessor's fine, infiltrator's fine, and cursor's fine. Alright, let's think a little bit about scoring, I think. And after the stream, I always put everybody that submitted a list into the comments section, right? So if anyone wants to come back and check out the lists after the stream is done, please, just scroll down into the comments and you'll get the full lists down there. Cool. Okay, OBSEC. We've got three OBSEC units here, 2 of which are Phobos. And we also have the captain with Rights of War. So I think I give that like a 9. It's been a little while actually since I made that video about OBSEC, so I will have to check. One second, let me pull up the slides. What did we say for OBSEC? We said 3 units of troops gives you 8, and Rights of War gives you 1 as well. Yeah, so it's a 9 for OBSEC. Cool. Anti-horde infantry. So we've got auto bolt rifles on the intercessors. Then cursors and infiltrators can do some anti-horde, but it's pathetic because it's AP 0 and it's strength 4. We've got the Dreadnought. I guess we've got a bunch of Angelus bolt guns on the Sanguinary Guard, which is nice. One thing that I've not done before, which we talked about this week in the Elite tier list video, right, was like, we talked about potentially using adaptive stratagem, or adaptive strategy on the Sanguinary Guard, which I guess would make, early in the game, if you don't have a priest around, you could play adaptive strategy to give their bolt guns an additional -1, and then their combat weapons an additional -1. That'd be pretty cool. Quake bolts is already a so-so upgrade, and I want nerf my eliminators with it. I mean, it's not really a nerf, is it? If they already hit on 2s, right? So they just you only get one shot with eliminators anyway, so I don't see how it's a nerf to them. I mean, it's, you know, it's just, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, because it's not like you're losing any damage, or it's not like you're losing any. Sure, occasionally your Eliminator Sergeant might want to shoot something different that you want +1 to hit on it, but it's pretty safe, I guess. It's a pretty safe play, I feel like. Sanguinary Guard is prime. Yeah, I think Sanguinary Guard are prime for adaptive strategy. I like how their Angelus bolt guns are like 18 inches as well now. And then we've got our Inceptors with those 18-inch assault bolters, and I guess you have some bolter fire on these Invader ATVs. So against Horde-based lists, I mean, it's not bad, but it's a lot of Strength 4 firepower, right? A little bit of Strength 5. So against like new orcs and stuff, I'm not sure how. It might be okay. Like, I think, kind of tempted to say it's a 7.5. I've put 8 down. Yeah, I think we go 7.5. I think the main thing I'm seeing here is like I would fix your fast attack, and I guess what I fix the fast attack, we either need to go 3 attack bikes or we need to go 2 Invader ATVs. The 1 attack bike on its own, I think, is the wrong choice. Yeah, I suppose you're right, Rizio. You're prioritizing trying to get the Eliminators to where they need to be to quake bolt somebody. That's why I guess if you want to do quake bolts on Eliminators, then maybe you take that Instigator bolt carbine. Yeah, I think that's probably cool. Because that way you can keep the Eliminators mobile and still do what they need to do, and make sure that you're getting a couple of shots off on the key targets that you want to snipe as well, right? Because I mean, the strength of Eliminators that you're sniping characters is, I guess, the 36 inches. I guess what you got to do is you got to play these quake bolts on your Eliminators and think about it. I mean, if you're being aggressive with this jump librarian, maybe there's a case where you drop this bolt pistol, change it to a bolt gun, and put quake bolts on him, and then Eliminators can go back to doing what they're supposed to be doing, and is sniping enemy targets or characters. But yeah, that's my thought. I just think 1 attack bike on its own is really weak, because I run squads of 3 attack bikes, and when people actually start focusing the attack bikes, it's very common to lose 1 or even 2 of them in a turn. I've even had turns where I've lost all 3 attack bikes in a turn. But if they kill 1, or if they kill 1.5, because, you know, they are toughness 5, they do have 4 wounds, so if they manage to do like 6 or 7 wounds, then when you res 1 and you heal the other one, that's like super strong from your Sanguinary Priest, right? That's like putting 90 points back on the table or something like that. So that's why I think you either go 3 attack bikes or 2 Invader ATVs. Alright, so multi-melta fire, we've got like 2 multi-meltas here, and then we've got our plasma here. We've got a lot of Sanguinary Guard with an Infernal Pistol. Could always swap out the Storm Shield on the Vanguard Veteran Sergeant for an Infernal Pistol. I generally feel like if we've lost 4 Vanguard Veterans, we're going to lose the whole squad, so having the Storm Shield in the last guy, probably better to just take an Infernal Pistol. Okay, so anti-monster, I guess you've got the Sanguinary Guard, you've got the Blade Guard, you've got the Vanguard Veterans to an extent. If you are sorting out the fast attack, if you can find 2 points to upgrade this Relic Blade to a Thunderhammer, I think that would be a good shout. And yeah, I mean, I think that's enough jump units. That's about similar jump units to what I run, so I think it's probably like a 9. And in terms of mobility then, I think most things are mobile. Your Eliminators aren't, but if you did switch out for that other carbine, then they could become. Your Dreadnought isn't mobile. Your Judasar and Blade Guard aren't really mobile, but they're probably going to hold the middle of the board. So I guess mobility is like maybe like an 8. And then specialization. So for specialization, I try and see if you've got a librarian so that you have denies, which you do. I try and look at how many 3 damage weapons you have, which I guess is like your chapter master, your librarian, your redemptor's got a couple, so that's 4. 5 on this infernal pistol, 6 from this multi-melta, 7 from this multi-melta. So 7 3 damage weapons. And the Judasar has his relic blade, so that's 8. I usually recommend around 10. 8 is probably okay. Maybe if you come up against Death Guard, you'll feel a little bit hard done by, because all of your 2 damage weapons will become 1 damage, which is really, it's rough, I guess. Especially, like, I feel like my shooting against Death Guard is always really poor because of that -1 damage, and you kind of have to overwhelm them with close combat abilities. So I mean, I guess if you fix this, I guess you're still on 8 3 damage weapons. That's why I was saying maybe a Thunderhammer here would be nice. Potentially an Infernal Pistol here would be nice. That would put you on 10. And if you were going to drop a Sanguinary Guard for like 32 points, and I guess that lets you, what? It would be, let me just add this up. It would be like 85 plus 32 plus 60. So you'd have like, if you went 3 attack bikes, you'd have no points left over. If you went the Invader ATV, you'd have 7 points left over. And so, yeah, I mean, 7 points left over would let you put that Thunderhammer in there for sure. And if you went the other attack bike, you would get another multi-melta. Yeah, so I think either of those things bring you up to almost 10, but at the moment you have 8, so that might be kind of a tiny little bit low. You have the Infiltrators, and you have plenty of units to do actions, and you've got Deep Strike Denial, so that's good as well. I mean, you cannot res the ATVs, but the Sanguinary Priest can heal 2 of them for 3 damage, and they don't need to be in a single squad, and they do get 6 bolt shots as well as the multi-meltas, so 8 wounds is quite a lot to chew through, I feel like. So that's something that I would do, maybe. We have the fight last in the Judasar. We are going to be careful with his positioning, so that's going to be a difficult part because we've got no whirlwind, but we do have the ability to make the enemy fight last. We also have the ability to make our units fight first with Veil of Time. Remember, Veil of Time doesn't stack with charging now, so Veil of Time, I guess, is more for charge rerolls and interrupts when the enemies charge you. And how many CP are we starting with in this list? 7, so I guess we have a good number of CP. We already have Quake Bolts. So I think specialization is pretty decent. It's like an 8. You know, we don't have any real protection against mortal wounds, which I think is going to be coming sooner rather than later. I mean, I guess you can get it with the Sanguinary Priest to a certain extent, but his 3-inch aura is pretty rough. But we do have Psychic Fortress as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent list. I mean, it's not a million miles away from my list. I was going to say, how many elites you got here? You've got 5. Annoying. I generally don't like battalions because 3 squads of troops feels like a little too much to me, but like that's why I've been doing double patrol and patrol vanguard to the more recent things. And Nathan saying all vehicles are all infantry is, yeah. The one dreadnought on his own does sort of stick out a little bit as a question mark, you know. But I don't think there's another choice here. Like, the only other way you could get like a second dreadnought is dropping all the Blade Guard veterans, and I think I think you want 3 units of deadly close combat in your list, and I think that's usually what people aim for, like a squad of Vanguard veterans, a squad of Sanguinary Guard, and a squad of Blade Guard veterans. I think some people are saying now that they actually prefer 2 squads of Vanguard veterans and 1 squad of Sanguinary Guard because of the amount of -1 damage there is out there. But yeah, I think like an 8. Yeah, alright, I already said that, sorry. So like 41.5. If you can fix your fast attack, maybe, and get another multi-melta in by having the attack bikes, or go the 2 Invader ATVs and switch out like a couple more 3 damage weapons in here, I think it maybe puts it up like another 0.5. I suppose if you did that and you were left with a few points, maybe you could put like a power sword or something on this Intercessor Squad Sergeant, just so like he has a way to kill some stuff. I mean, Intercessor Squad Sergeant has 3 attacks, so 5 power swords, generally be quite good, I guess, if you're getting charged mid-board, I suppose. And the only other thing I would probably say is, I think if you're going to go 3 troop choices and have 3 obsec troop choices, I'm not 100% sure you need Rites of War. I was winning every single game before when I just had 1 troop choice. Right now I'm struggling against some of the Sisters Codexes and stuff, but I don't think I'm losing the games because of OBSEC. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I'm just losing the games because the enemy's dishing out so much damage to me. So I think that maybe that Chapter Master Second Warlord trait could be something more useful. I'm not 100% sure what that more useful thing would be. But I feel like you need to play a few games and think if rights of, because here's the thing, right? If you're Jump Master, I always call him a Jump Master when he's a Chapter Master, or sometimes I call him a Bike Master if he's on a bike. If you're Jump Master and the Sanguinary Guard pile into an objective, and at the moment you have 9, I really think you could be fine with 8 on this list. But if you do have 9 Sanguinary Guard and your Jump Master pile into an objective to fight the enemy, like, what's going to be survived against like 45? These are basically going to be 45 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. So you're probably going to get like 40 hits. You're going to wound fairly decently as well. Like, what's surviving, what's surviving strong enough that you're going to need Rites of War? And bear in mind, we haven't even talked about this. Jump Master has probably 6 attacks, I think, with a Mastercrafter's 3 damage Relic Blade. So, like, I feel like there's probably a better option than Rites of War here. I mean, I run my Jump Master or my Chapter Master to be super survivable. So I use, I give him Adamantium Mantle, right? But you could give him like Iron Resolve, give him an extra wound, give him a Feel No Pain, or Adamantium Mantle, and the other option, I suppose, could be Soul Warden. We're talking about how maybe mortal wounds are becoming more prevalent. I know the Sisters lists I'm playing at the moment are able to dish out like 9 mortal wounds a turn for like 2 CP. So take Soul Warden and just everybody around the Chapter Master gets a 5-up shrug against mortal wounds. I think try it, but I don't know how much value you're going to see out of that Rites of War. Sword of the Imperium, says Benjamin Clark. Yeah, I mean, you could give him an additional attack, additional strength, and a reroll. Sword of the Imperium, actually, I think it's called Imperium Sword, but regardless, I think it lets him reroll his charge as well. So he could reroll his charge, he could be hitting on strength 8, and he could have 7 attacks, which is nice. But yeah, Rites of War is good for scoring. It depends though, like how if you have infiltrators and incursors that are able to sit on objectives the whole game, and you have Blade Guard, Judicar, and another Intercessor squad going off on another objective, I don't know how much flipping you need to do with Rites of War. It's my opinion though, so feel free to ignore it, but I'm just telling you what I've seen. Adam says, I really like Soul Warden. I wish you could fit it into my list. I just changed my list, actually, to include Soul Warden. Good morning to America, Levi. How you doing? Jack says, hi all. Missed the start due to Sunday nap. Look forward to seeing the list. Hi, Jack. Sunday naps are brilliant, aren't they? That's what you do on a Sunday afternoon. You just lie down and have a nap in the living room with the television on. All right. Anthony. Please let me know if you have more comments. Let me know. But I always try and say to people, play your list, right? Like, it's probably best to play the list, and then when you finish the next game you play that list with, come back and watch this half an hour segment, because I mean, I don't delete these videos off the channel, they're there forever. So you can watch this segment again and listen to what I said, and then like put 2 and 2 together. You could be like, yeah, actually, Rights of War did nothing for me this game, but my chapter master died, so maybe, survivability is something I need. Or, I feel like I didn't have enough 3 damage weapons, for example. Or I feel like I could have used another deny, so maybe I need to make my librarian a chief librarian. Or my powers were failing, so maybe I need to get the chief librarian upgraded and then the psychic mastery warlord trait to give him +1 to his powers, to his cast chance, So, what spreadsheet is this? This is a spreadsheet that I made that just gives us... that I just use for scoring all lists. Every list since the beginning of time is in the spreadsheet, and it just sort of shows like a strength, weakness based on the person's list. Okay. You can also fit in a chaplain for the litany and another. You can. Yeah, I mean, you can take a chaplain if you need mortal wound protection. Litany of Faith is very good as well. Yeah, no problem, Anthony. Hopefully, yeah. Let me know how you get on with it. I appreciate hearing sometimes people come back and say you gave me a great review of my list. Sometimes people are like, not so much. So, all right, Kevin. I'm not sure if I've seen Kevin in the chat yet today, but anyway, we'll move on to Kevin's list next. Kevin. Cool. Okay, so he's building a list around Hector Rex. Love the model and got lucky with one being at my local game store that I was able to pick up yesterday. It's a different list than what I usually run, and it's probably a bit too elite, but I was hoping to get some good feedback. I don't think there's such a thing as a bit too elite. I love elite-based lists. I have so many. I think my lists are usually like 9 elites, honestly. Okay, so... let's start with Hector Rex then, and I'm sure some people are familiar with Hector Rex, but some people will not be, so we'll just pull up his profile real quick. And he's taken Dominate and the Warding Incantation. So Warding Incantation gives him... he can make an unfriendly Imperium or Biker, infantry or Biker within 12 inches, get a 5+ invulnerable save. Dominate is the one where... you cast it on an enemy model, I think it's within 12 inches. If you roll 3d6 and it's more than their leadership, you can make a single attack as if you were that enemy model. It can't be a vehicle, so I think it has to be like infantry or monster or whatnot. But if you use it on Mortarion, for example, you could make Mortarion attack a monster, an enemy next to him if you pass and beat him on the psychic roll. So Hector Rex is a pretty cool character. 100 points. He's basically in Terminator armor. He's a Forge World Inquisitor. Weapon skill 2, 6 wounds. His toughness is only 3, but he does have a 2+ save. He does have the Satanic Shield that gives him a 4+ invulnerable save, and then that makes his regular save a 1-up. And on mortal wounds, he has a 5+ shrug. It's also possible to give him a Warlord trait and make this a 3+ invulnerable save, which is super strong, right? Like, Games Workshop have done a lot of stuff over the last little while to remove models that have, like, a default 3-up save, but Hector Rex for sure can have a 3-up save. He knows 2 psychic powers, he can attempt to deny 2, and he also has Smite. He's got the Psychic Hood for the 12-inch deny. He's Teleport Strike because he's a Terminator. Nearby Imperial models within 6 can use his leadership. He's Ordo Malus, which means he re-rolls all hits and wounds against Chaos and Demons, which is pretty nice. So he just has a pistol, I guess, but re-roll hits and wounds. And then he basically has like a power sword, or a mastercrafted power sword, so it would be strength 5, AP -3, 2 damage. Against demons, though, any successful wounds, the target suffers 1 additional mortal wound. So, did I say Satanic Shield? Oh, right. Sanctic Shield. Sorry. That's one of those words where your brain just autofills because the correct letters are in the word, right? Or very similar. Yeah, okay. So I think he's actually kind of cool. Against Chaos, he's going to be very strong. 4 attacks, rerolling hits and wounds, and every wound against demons is going to do an additional mortal wound, and then he is this, he does have those few different psychic powers. These Inquisitors also get like a really cool psychic power as well. Or sorry, really cool stratagem. I'm going to have to bring it up because I forget what it's called. But they have this stratagem called Strategic Excuration, meaning use this stratagem in any phase after an enemy character is destroyed within 3 inches of an Inquisitor from your army. Gain D3 command points and subtract 1 leadership characteristic of enemies until the end of the battle. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. So if you do get this guy in and he manages to make a kill, or he's 3 inches away from an enemy when you kill them, for 1 CP, you gain D3 command points, and the enemy loses 1 leadership across their whole army for the rest of the game. Hey Mike, how you doing? So there's a lot to be said about Hector Rex. I like him a lot. The only thing I don't like about him, I believe he's like $50 on Forge World. It's no joke how expensive he is. His rules are cool. Is he worth $50? Question mark. Alright, $38 here in the UK. But still, it's quite a lot, I guess. He does come with some other random characters, I guess. Maybe they're Forge World. Maybe they're Horus Heresy stuff. But yeah, he's a cool model. Okay. We then have a captain on the bike with Chapter Master, Infernal Pistol, and Teeth of Terra, and Imperium Sword. Okay. Imperium Sword, I guess, makes the Teeth of Terra strength. What's Teeth of Terra? +2 strength or +1 strength? I think it's +1. It's a chain sword. They're usually +1, right? Teeth of Terra +1, yeah. So that makes him strength 6. And Teeth of Terra obviously gives him 3 extra attacks. So we'd be on potentially. Captain on the bike has 4, so potentially a 9 attack, strength 6, 2 damage, -2. So quite a cheap but effective Chapter Master, I feel like. Imperium Sword giving him another attack as well, actually. So I guess when he charges, he's potentially on 10 attacks. Yeah, I think that's right. Someone can disagree with me if I'm wrong, but I think he gets 10 attacks. You got him for 25, Kevin. Nice. All right, thanks for being here as well. I appreciate you being here when we're going to look at your when you're going to look at your army list. All right. We also have the Primaris Chaplain on a bike, who has the Mantra of Strength and Canticle of Hate, the Benediction of Fury. He is the Master of Sanctity. He has Iron Resolve, and he is the hero of the chapter. So who's the Warlord? I'm wondering why you haven't taken Wise Orator. I think Wise Orator is so strong. Yeah, I mean, like, Gift of Foresight and Imperium Sword. I think I'd probably go the other way and just... I think I would make the Chaplain on the bike and give him the Wise Orator, just because I think that the almost guaranteed casting of the litanies is super strong. But, I mean, it's not bad, right? Primaris Chaplain on the bike, 8 wounds, 6+ shrug. I like making my characters survivable, and I guess these are both pretty survivable. And then we have our Sanguinary Priest, who has the standard Selfless Healer, Hero of the Chapter stuff. Okay, we have 3 squads of Incursors, so I guess Incursors are good because you can deploy kind of aggressively or kind of defensively. The -1 AP that they have in close combat is pretty handy. We have a Redemptor with a heavy framer and the Macroplasma and the Fragstorm, so this is the easy to build Redemptor, keeping it nice and cheap, 175 points. I don't dislike it. A little bit of a question mark around just having the 1 Redemptor or the 1 Dreadnought, but I guess as we get into the list we'll see why. We then have 2, 4, 6, 7 Sangre Guard, all with swords. We have been talking a lot how axes are maybe going to be more... In the next 6 months, we think axes are going to be more reliable than swords. Swords are only going to be strongest in the future, I think, if you're running Null Zone. If you're not running Null Zone, axes are probably going to start pulling ahead. So, I mean, right now it's fine. And I mean, I think in general, swords are probably still fine for the most part. But like, I think axes will be the more reliable source of damage. We then have 2 Vanguard Veteran squads, each with 4 Lightning Claws and a Thunderhammer and all Storm Shields. Again, you could feasibly swap out the Storm Shield on the Sergeant for an Infernal Pistol. I don't think you lose anything for that. I really think if you're down to your last one guy in the Vanguard Veteran squad, then it's likely the squad's going to die. So, I mean, if you want to keep one squad more survivable, maybe one squad could get an Infernal Pistol and one squad couldn't. And you throw the squad without the pistol a bit more aggressive. We then have 5 attack bikes, all with multi-meltas, and I mean, this makes sense because we have that Sangre Priest who can heal 2 different squads and res a unit every turn. It's a real pity that you don't have the points to have a second, to make it 2x3 attack bikes. And then, but I mean, you know, something's always got to give, right? And then we've got the Whirlwind with the Castellan Launcher for the fight first, or fight last rather, for the enemies. Alright, so 4 HQ, and our HQ points are taking up, I guess, around, 150, 290, 295, so 440, 540 points. Yeah, so HQ is really pushing it, but all of your HQ, or 3 out of the 4, are pretty damn survivable, right? Hector with his crazy save and his shrug, your captain with a pretty solid save and Gift of Foresight, the guy on the bike with a solid save and Iron Resolve and a bunch of wounds. I like the fact that you've done 2 Vanguard Veteran squads. I think I was talking about this earlier in the stream that, like, I think now you're going to be stronger running 2 Vanguard Veteran squads than 1 Sangre Guard than running 2 Sangre Guard and 1 Vanguard Veteran squads. So I think this is the right choice. I love attack bikes. I guess probably how I would play it would be I would just hide these 2 for turn 1, so make sure they can't be shot in turn 1, because they're going to be the easier squad for the enemy to delete, right? So keep those nice and safe at the beginning. Make sure the priests around these guys, give them that 6+ shrug. Infiltrators are going to give you good board control. The 1 Redemptor is probably actually fine with this list if you're going to use him to maybe give the attack bikes some rerolls, or use him to, probably use the Wisdom of the Ancient part to give reroll 1s, like the Lieutenant part, because I guess we don't really have that in this list. So that's something to consider. And then yeah, I mean, I don't think I would change too much else. I was going to say I might try and get an Infernal Pistol into the Sangre Guard. To do that, again, I'd probably just drop 1 Lightning Claw or something out of one of the squads of Vanguard Veterans and have one with I'd have one with a chainsword that's a nice cheap unit for when he dies. What does this list start with? Is it 8 CP? 8 CP, okay. I mean, I was going to say, like, the other option would be to lose the Thunderhammer on 1 squad of these guys and give them a bolt pistol and Quake bolts, right? So that you're gonna hit on 2s with a squad of Vanguard Veterans. Thanks for hanging out, Reziel. I think, I mean, or I suppose one of the Incursor Sergeants could take Quake bolts, and the Incursors that are deployed most aggressively, I guess. But I like Hector Rex. I like the Inquisitors. I do think you might be better than, rather than take Dominate. I was gonna say, let me bring up. I can't pronounce that. Like the Telthesia discipline. Because I've obviously been running an Inquisitor as of late. I don't think I'm running him in my list this week, but I have been running one. And I think the power I would probably take is Castigation, right? Castigation has a warp charge value of 6 if manifested. Select an enemy with an 18 and roll 3d6. If the total exceeds the lowest leadership of the enemy, then the target suffers d3 mortal wounds. If you think the average roll on a d6 is 3.5, so if you roll 3d6, your average roll is around 10. Telethesia, thank you, Benjamin. So Castigation feels to me like it's a pretty good. It's basically a targetable smite with an 18, right? And I feel like it's pretty reliable. So I would say like just Castigation might be better than Dominate, because unless you have enemies that you think you can dominate to do more than d3 mortal wounds. And remember, if you dominate the enemy, then you have to make the attack, right? So you have to roll to hit, you have to roll to wound, they get to roll to save. So Castigation to me feels like it's maybe a little bit better. I ran mine with I ran mine with Mental Interrogation, because I thought like Mental Interrogation sounds super awesome, right? Like I will gain command points every time I roll 3d6 over the leadership. In practice, it's really hard because your Inquisitor only moves 5. I was running Cotia's. I actually don't know. Does Cotia's run? Does he move 5 as well, or is it 6? So Cotia's actually moves an extra inch, and I found that one like super hard to do, which was 12 inches. So you're gonna have the same problem here with the 12 inches with a Dominate. So I think you're probably gonna get more reliable damage if you just take Castigation. That was what I was gonna do next time I ran an Inquisitor. So I think that's probably I'd probably change that, just because in practice 12 inches for your psychic phase it's going to be difficult. Plus, if you think if the enemy have denies, the chances of you not being in deny bubble when you're within 12 is like slim to none, whereas like if you were 18 inches away, potentially their psyker isn't in the right position and you don't have to worry about them denying it. So there's that. I can't really fault too much of your HQ choices. I mean, I made a couple of small suggestions, maybe. I do like Wise Orator a lot. I think it makes your litanies like a lot more valuable. And I mean, you could do that if you were willing to drop Imperium Sword and maybe make the Chaplain on the Bike the Warlord, but it's a 50-50 for me. I understand why you've got the Imperium Sword to reroll charges, to get that +1 strength, to get that additional attack. So if you don't feel like you have too many problems if these litanies don't go off, then that's fine as well. One thing I do want to say though is like I am thinking about taking a Chaplain now so that I can run him with Soul Warden to get or Litany of Faith to get shrugs against mortal wounds. And you can do that here, I suppose, very easily. You could just drop Canticle of Hate or something and take Soul Warden, or Mantra of Strength, right? Like, you do still get a very decent amount of attacks and stuff with the Benediction of Fury on that Chaplain. The one Dreadnought on his own, you know, we have a question mark around that. And then I really like how you've got Thunderhammers in your Vanguard Veteran squad. I think it's good. I'd like to see some more axes. And then let's just talk about 3 damage weapons for a second. So we've got 5 multi-meltas here. We've got 2 Thunderhammers, that gives us 7. We've got the Fist and the Plasma on the Redemptor, that gives us 9. We have the Benediction of Fury, that gives us 10. And I guess we've got an Infernal Pistol on our Captain, which gives us 11. So that's nice to see. 11 3 damage weapons. And I mean, Teeth of Terra coming in with 11 attacks is generally pretty nice as well. Okay, so 11 3 damage weapons. Let's do some scoring. OBSEC then, we've got the 3 Phobos troops. So we're looking at about an 8.5. Anti-Horde infantry, I guess, is maybe a little lighter. We've got 7 Angelus bolt guns. I guess each one of these gets full 4 bolter shots. So we've got like 20 storm bolters. We got the Whirlwind. And then we've got the Redemptor, but just probably the Frag Storm at 18 inches. And then the Cursors. So I think it's a little bit weaker than our last one. So against horde-based lists, it's kind of weaker. And when I'm looking at against horde-based lists, I'm mainly looking at your shooting threat, right? Because the reason I'm looking at your shooting threat is that you don't want to be tied up with hordes on strong units. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But you know what? You do have, like, I guess you've got the Teeth of Terra, 11 attacks on that guy. He's literally going to grind hordes into the absolute ground. Is it 11 attacks? The captain is 4 attacks. Teeth of Terror gives you 3 more, so that's 7 attacks. You charge, you get 8. You get Savage Echoes, you get 9. You get Imperium Sword, you get 10. Where was I getting 11th on? No, I think it's just 11 attacks. Sorry, it's just 10 attacks. Just 10 attacks. Like, no big deal. 10 attacks hitting on 2s. Against hordes, you're going to wound on 2s. So you can and it's 2 damage each. And I guess, yeah, you could just grind through hordes absolutely painlessly with that one captain. But the shooting threat is a little bit less. Anti-vehicle monster effectiveness. So, nice to see these Thunderhammers. A lot of multi-meltas. Decent-sized Sanguinary Guard. A Redemptor with a Plasma if we need it. I think it's right on par with the last list that we looked at. We've got a few more 3 damage weapons, but maybe a little bit... I don't want to say less synergy. I was going to say a little bit of questionable synergy, because I suppose it depends on how you play your captain on the bike, right? Because, like, for me, I try and have the captain on the bike sit for a couple of turns and use, like, Chapter Master rerolls up on dreadnoughts or bikes or whatnot. But when you've got your captain on the bike with the Teeth of Terra like this, I feel like there's a emphasis on trying to get him into combat to shred up a bunch of infantry. So, what's buffing your bikes with the captains left? I mean, I guess you can buff them with the Redemptor. You can pop Wisdom of the Ancient on it. But, yeah, so I think Anti-Monster Vehicle is probably about the same. It's probably about a 9. We have a little bit more 3 damage weapons here. Mobility is probably better than the last list. We have one Dreadnought that... I mean, the Dreadnoughts still move 8, so the mobility is kind of okay. The Whirlwind moves 10, mobility is kind of okay, and then the Incursors can guerrilla tactics and perform actions. So I think mobility is maybe like an 8-5. And then Specialization. So we don't have a Psyker. So we've got no deny. Oh, sorry. Of course we have. We have Hector Rex. I was going to say we don't have that. We have Hector Rex, which gives us 2 denies. So that's actually better. We have a Chaplain who could take a way to give us mortal wound protection, but we don't have that right now. We do have probably like this list is more heavy on the infantry, so we're going to be able to get more value out of our Sanguinary Priest. With 3 units performing actions. We have 11 3 damage weapons. We have the ability to make the enemies fight last with the Whirlwind. So, yeah, I mean, Specialization to me feels like it's like a 9 or something. Like, what is this list going to struggle with? The attack bites can always fall back and shoot, which is nice. So they can't essentially get wrapped up in combat. I really like the Captain and the Primaris Chaplain on the bike. I think they're both really strong, great characters. So, yeah, I think overall, I think this might be this week's list to beat. Oh shit, wrong button. Let me think. What would I change if this was up to me? We've got 3 points left over at the moment. Yeah, I think I would drop a Lightning Claw, get an Infernal Pistol into the Sanguinary Guard. Or drop a Lightning Claw, get Rocket Pods on the Redemptor, maybe? I think it's fine to have one cheap model in your Vanguard Veteran Squad. You are going to take a casualty, so it just gives you that nice cheap unit for the first one that is dead. And I guess you don't really have much other ways to play here. One of these squads could take an Infernal Pistol, or one of the Vanguard veterans could drop their Storm Shield on the Sergeant to take a Bolt Pistol, give them Quake Bolts, and then I think Quake Bolts would be pretty valuable. If you think about charging in with a squad like this, each Lightning Claw gets 5 attacks, The Thunderhammer gets 5 attacks as well, of course, because the Sergeant's got an additional attack. So if you take 20 attacks hitting on 3s, you're taking like 13 hits. If you get 20 attacks hitting on 2s, you're getting 16 hits. So the Quake Bolts here, if one unit charges them, you're getting, I mean, what's 16.66 divided by 13.33? So you're getting about a 25% damage increase by using Quake Bolts. So maybe drop one of these Storm Shields, that gives you 5 points. That's your Infernal Pistol and the Sanguinary Guard. Then take Quake Bolts on one of these Sergeants. Or, I mean, you could potentially take Quake Bolts on your Sanguinary Priest, I guess. That would be an option too. I guess he's just got the Bolt Pistol, which is a 12-inch range, so just have to work around that. Or one of your Incursors, I suppose. 24 inches on the Incursor guns, are they? I don't really run Incursors all that much. I usually run Infiltrators myself. But I do have Incursors. Incursors. Yeah, 24 inches on their bolt carbines. So one of them could add a Quake Bolts to just help out things as well. Do you know what? Someone's mentioned the Gatling Cannon as well. Yeah, I mean, I usually recommend that you run the Gatling Cannon on this Dreadnought. I mean, the Heavy Flamer gives you a little bit of defense against you being charged, sure. But it's not that much defense. The Gatling Cannon, strength 5, 8 shots is pretty nice for 5 points. You could drop one squad of Incursors to Intercessors. Yeah, that's a possibility as well. That gives you 5 points too. Get a heavy Gatling Cannon on it. So yeah, there's a few small changes you could do here, Kevin, but overall it's pretty solid, I think. I still think attack bites are good at the new points cost. I only have 3, so I've never tried running more than 3, but I still think they're generally pretty good. So yeah, please put a message in the chat or something, Kevin, if you've got any questions. But yeah, I think that's a pretty cool list. I think it will be the list to beat today. Let's see who's up next. It's Adrian. We're just going to call him Adrian because I can't pronounce his second name. I'm so sorry. I am terrible at pronunciation and speaking in general, so please do not be offended if I pronounce your name wrongly or badly. I can't even pronounce Scottish names, so if you're not, if you're not from Scotland, like, I've got no chance. Alright, we move on to Adrian, which is list number 3 for today. The Redemptor is there to take shots away from infantry. I can see it being quite useful for that, although not doing much else. Yeah, I mean, I think the onslaught cannon on the Redemptor is 24 inches, right? So I feel like if you're going to have your Redemptor hang around with attack bikes to potentially buff their chance to hit, then your Flamer is going to be redundant a good amount of time. So yeah, I think I would probably 100% pay the 5 points if you can for that onslaught cannon. Alright, so Adrian says, game plan, Dreadnought. Do you know what, maybe we'll look at the list first, then read the game plan after, because otherwise I'll be a bit confused. Okay, so it's a patrol detachment. So I imagine it's either like double patrol or patrol and Alright, so it's a patrol and vanguard. So we're starting with 9 CP, yeah? Okay, and he's got 2 extra relics in this first one. So we've got the Captain on the Bike, Gift of Foresight, Icon of the Angel, Storm Shield, and Thunderhammer. Okay. And then a Primaris Tech Marine with Master of the Forge. So he can heal a flat 3 damage every turn. That's what the Primaris Tech Marine with Master of the Forge does. And we've got an Infiltrator squad with a Helix Gauntlet, which means the first time that model takes damage in each turn, it can ignore the result. So it just basically makes your Infiltrators that much more survivable. Basically means that they can just ignore the first point of damage they take. But I believe the Helix Gauntlet, once per turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer unit, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0. So if you were hit with a multi-melta and you failed the saving throw, it would actually do 0 damage. It wouldn't matter how much damage they would do. We then have 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and I mean, we have talked about this in the last 2, that having these 2 Redemptors, I think, it provides a lot of value, I think, and I guess with the Tech Marine being able to heal the Flat 3 and the Captain around it, potentially given reroll 1s and Chapter Master auras, is pretty nice. The Tech Marine will also put one of them on a 2+ ballistic skill, and then we've got the Whirlwind with the Vengeance Launcher. I don't like the Vengeance Launcher. I don't think it provides much value for the 10 points. I did do some maths on it a while back. Maybe I can find it real quick. Let me see. Whirlwind. Apparently, I called it indirect fire. That was the one. Indirect fire options. This would be the one. And anyone that's seeing all these slides and stuff, if you are a member of the Discord, if you are a member of the channel, you just get all these slides to download. Yeah, so you're paying 10 points against, I guess, infantry and characters. You're doing maybe like 1 more point of damage. Against Blightlord Terminators, you're doing 1/10 of a point of damage more. Against Mortarion, you're actually doing less damage. It's so minor. It's 10 points for like literally half a damage. I just don't think it's a good choice. And because you get literally half the amount of shots, then it makes it more. You're more likely to fail. You're more likely to not make a hit and have suppression fire not work, and you've paid 10 points for the privilege. I generally don't like the Castellan Launcher. The Vengeance Launcher. You want to have the Castellan Launcher. Kevin, thanks for the great suggestions. Just wanted a Flamer and Dread for anti-charge, but I can change it. Yeah, I mean, as I say, I always say play the list. Play the list. And yeah, I do understand the Flamer and the Dread could be some anti-charge. I mean, if you really want to hang on to the flavour, then why don't you try and take the rocket pods? To just give you a little bit more threat at 24 inches, because I imagine you're going to want the Dreadnought with the bikes around 24 inches away, getting their damage out, so the Flamer may end up being a bit worthless. I feel like a good player will just put bolters into you until they pop the Helix. Yeah, I mean, the Helix is... it can be good, right? The Helix, like if you've got a unit hiding in cover, for example, I'm playing Death Guard tomorrow and he's running 2 squads of... he's running 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, so he's going to be targeting my units hiding in cover with those mortars, which are flat 2 damage and strength 8 -2. So if he's going to be targeting units in cover with mortars, the Helix can provide quite a bit of value, but yeah, you're right. If the unit's in the open, the Helix can be kind of gamed a bit by the enemy. So yeah, consider the Castellan Launcher on this. We then have a Librarian, Veil of Time, Nullzone, Psychic Fortress. He is the Chief Librarian. He has an Infernal Pistol, he has Psychic Mastery, and he has Tomb of Malkador. I don't actually think he needs Tomb of Malkador here, right? Because if he gets Tomb of Malkador, he has a 4th power. Because Chief Librarian gives him a 3rd power. So I think in this case, Adrian, you've paid Tomb of Malkador and you've not got anything out of it, unless there's a power that you meant to add to the list that you've kind of forgot. We then have our Sanguinary Priest. This Sanguinary Priest has Visions of Death. So the Sanguinary Priest would be -1 to hit in melee, I believe, with Visage of Death, each time a melee attack is made against him. But I feel like you're never really going to want your Sanguinary Priest in melee, unless it's the very end of the game and you're just mopping up units. There's almost no reason for him to ever be in melee. Why would you risk him? His value is not in combat, his value is in survival and revives and the Blood Chalice. The other question, I guess, is... placement of this guy is super important, right? Because you have to place him to keep him survivable. You need to be near squads, you need to be near vehicles, you need to be out of line of sight. Visage of Death is only a 3-inch aura, so you're gonna. This is almost what Reziel was saying earlier. You're gonna nerf him a little bit by giving him Visage of Death because he's not going to. Oh, you've given him Rites of War as well? Yeah, okay, you definitely don't need to do this. I'd drop the Visage of Death for sure. If you've got Rites of War, that's maybe okay, but I don't think you need both of them. No way. I would not take both of these. I think Rites of War is the better of the two, so I just take Rites of War. It gives you the 6-inch one, so arguably you can still be where you want to be, but providing the aura within 6. We then have 2 squads of minimum size Blade Guards, and I've been playing the minimum size Blade Guards, and I like Blade Guards, but the minimum survive ones just don't work for me. Like, I think you need to be 4 at least. Swap out Visage of Death for Teeth of Terra or Armor Indomitus. I would probably even put Armor Indomitus on him just to try and make him survive a turn if he gets jumped on, you know? We then have the Sanguinary Priest, bolt gun, sword, 5 swords, 2 Infernal Pistols. Actually, 7 swords, 2 Infernal Pistols. So again, what we said earlier, axes are starting to become the more popular choice. We're seeing this quite often. 4 Lightning Claws and a Thunderhammer on Vanguard Veterans. And I believe in my new list, because I've just been making a new list this week as well, that's how I've gone. So previously I was doing something different, but I've moved towards the Thunderhammer on the Sergeant and Lightning Claws on the rest. And maybe maybe a Chainsword guy or 2 in there to pad out the squad and or give yourself a cheap model to take the first set of wounds on. But yeah, so I think this actually seems to be the way forward. I do wonder if there's something we can do with these Blade Guards. 2 3-man squads seems questionable. I mean, if you're jumping them both towards the middle of the board along with 2 Redemptors, then maybe it's okay. Okay, let me see what he said about strategy, because he wrote me a little essay. I feel Visage of Death is great, but only really shines when you combo it with Rites of War. Without that, it's a bit lackluster. Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike them, but I don't think the Sanguinary Priest is the right character for carrying Visage of Death, because Visage of Death, you basically need to be in the center of that objective, right? So that like your model standing in the center is putting that 3-inch bubble on anyone within range. And I feel like your Sanguinary Priest, his positioning is so important, in that like you don't want him to be shot by the enemy because he doesn't really survive on like 4 wounds and a 3+ save, right? So he can't be in a position he could be shot. He needs to be played defensively. He also needs to be in position to get maximum value out of like resurrects and heals. So you're making things very difficult for yourself by giving him Visage of Death. Okay, Dreadnought, Librarian, Tech Marine, and Blade Guard Veterans go up in the middle board and hold as much as possible. Dreadnought plus Tech Marine provide quality fire support with Librarian for Fortress, Tech Marine for bonus plus repairs. 1 Dreadnought spams Wisdom of the Ancient, and Captain provides rerolls. I mean, that is a solid strategy right there. That's similar to what I was thinking would be a really solid place to start. Whirlwind stays back to snipe off weak held objectives and give suppression fire for charging units. Jetpack units roam around the board to look for opportunities to disrupt, backline, and flip objectives. Try and keep a blob of Vanguard Veterans and Sanguinary Guard with a Priest for better objective control. Captain can either stay with Dreads for counterpunch or move forward with Blade Guard Veterans for tanky punch hammer unit. Infiltrators deploy either forward to threaten to camp objectives or backfield with a Whirlwind to hold back objectives. Sanguinary Guard can be held in deep strike eventually to land with Captain. Potentially against lists with less long-range damage anti-tank, the Dreadnought can be kept in strategic reserve to ensure they will at least 1 round of shooting. Okay, I mean, a lot of good points here. And, you know, we talked a little bit about this, like, a Priest and a Tech Marine. Like, is that too much? Like, do you need to either focus on one or the other? And I've been... Since the points changes come in, I think... Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Mark or Tony said in the chat last week, since the point changes came in, I have not beaten Sisters of Battle. And I think, like, I don't think my list is bad, I actually think my list is in a pretty good spot. I just think it doesn't trade well against Sisters of Battle, and because of that I was thinking, I think I either need to double down on a Tech Marine only, or a priest only. And I know I don't run both of them at the moment, but I've been thinking about it quite a bit, that like I think either of those two ways is the best way to try and make it possible to trade against sisters. So a priest or a tech marine. This list actually tries to do both. So I guess the question is, how much do you lose by trying to do both? I actually think this is still pretty strong. The Primaris Tech Marine is a very good unit. The Redemptor Dreadnoughts are pretty strong. We do not have any attack bikes here, so we lack a little bit of range damage. But I guess what we lack in range damage we pick up in the fact that we have like 5 pretty strong melee threats. I guess it'll come down to terrain and positioning and stuff like that if we can get them in. The captain on the bike with Thunderhammer, an icon of the angel, a gift of foresight, and the librarian with Null Zone, Veil of Time, Psychic Fortress. Okay, and how many CP are we actually looking at? So we've paid 2 in the second detachment, so we're starting with 5. So we're right on the border. I think 5 CP is the lowest you should ever start with Blood Angels. I actually think 5 makes things pretty difficult. Ardent Shroud Sisters are pretty obscene. Melta Spam and Bloody Road Melee is hard to put up against. JW, I've been dealing with the spam from the Flamers. Oh my god, those Flamers can put out so many mortal wounds, it's ridiculous. They put out mortal wounds when they don't even wound the target, because it was like he flamed my Whirlwind, and like he would only wound the Whirlwind on 5s, but he's dealing mortal wounds on rolls of 4+, and I was like, do you still get to deal the mortal wounds even if you don't roll high enough to wound the Whirlwind? And he was like, oh yeah, you still get to do the mortal wounds. But yeah, so I'm not sure how I feel about running both the priest and the tech marine. Like, looking at the list on paper though, right? I think it actually looks not bad. Could go 1 unit of 5 Blade Guard and add a Servitor unit to hide at the back. That's a pretty good idea, actually. Yeah, 5. Make it 5 Blade Guard. That's the perfect size for Transhuman. And because you have the Tech Marine, you're allowed to take... Your Servitors actually don't take up a Force Organization slot, but it doesn't actually matter because this is a Vanguard detachment. You got loads of Elite slots. Yeah, I would do that. 100% what Island Phoenix says. I would probably switch out an Infernal Pistol maybe on one of these Sergeants. What else would I do? I was going to say, because he's on 5 CP... I don't know. I think I would drop Visage of Death, right? If you drop Visage of Death, then you can give your captain Angel's Exemplar and give him either... What does Angel's Exemplar do? He gets 1 more Warlord trait. So you could give him either something like Soul Warden, protect your whole army against mortal wounds, or you could give him something like Artisan of War. Or Speed of the Primarch is actually a little bit better now, I guess. Artisan of War to give yourself 1 of the special issue war gear, which would be Adamantium Mantle, Mastercrafted Weapon, or Digital Weapons. So you could give yourself a Mastercrafted Thunderhammer on that, Captain. Be pretty nice. I've never actually mastercrafted an Infernal Pistol, but yeah, you don't have an Infernal Pistol, so you can mastercraft the Captain's Weapon. Or, yeah, I was going to say Digital Weapons just basically lets him roll a 2+ every combat phase and do 1 mortal wound. That's not bad either as well, actually. Could maybe give Captain on the bike Gift of Foresight, and then Rites of War and Visage of Death, giving the Icon of the Angel to the Priest. Or just give the Captain the Hammer of Baal. Yeah, do you know, you're probably right. I think the thing is that he's going to be hanging that Captain back, though, with the Dreadnoughts to begin with. So you might not get that much out of Rites of War, and then you probably want the Icon of the Angel to make that long-range charge when you actually push forward. Hammer of Baal is way better than a Mastercrafted Hammer. I don't think it actually is, Benjamin. Again, I've done slides on that. Let me think. I've done a lot of slides since I started this channel. They were at... Oh, geez, which video would it be in? It would be in the video. I did a video on Smash Captains. It might be in there, and I also did a video on. I also did a video on like the best, like not the best melee Smash characters. This is it. And I think we looked at. Let me see. We had a Death Company captain with the Hammer of Baal. No, maybe. There's so many videos I've done. I can't think which one it would be, but I mean, if you have Gift of Foresight, bear in mind you can reroll 1 hit and 1 wound, right? And I guess, yeah, you're right that there is an additional point of AP on the Hammer of Baal, but if you have 6 attacks and you can do 3 damage per attack, the maximum you can do is what, 18? If you have 6 attacks, you can do 4 damage, the maximum you can do is 24. Now, you are going to be 16% less chance to hit, but you are able to do basically, what's 24 divided by 18? So you got 16% less chance to hit, but you have a ceiling of 33% more. So I think, and yeah, I suppose there is the AP dependency in there as well. But I can do some maths on that. I'm sure I've done it. Because I remember looking at the Mastercrafted hammer against the Hammer of Baal, and when you actually math it out with the averages, it's super similar, right? Like there's very little in it. In some cases, I'm pretty sure the Mastercrafted hammer pulled ahead. I feel like hitting on weapon skill is more valuable than moving from 3D to 4. I think the thing about the Gift of Foresight, and I guess the other thing about the Chapter Master late in the game can be left on his own. So if he's left on his own and the only unit within 6 inches of him is himself, then you put Chapter Master rerolls down on yourself when you have a 4 damage Thunderhammer. It's pretty friggin' nice. At that point you're hitting 88% of the time. So I guess you have to factor that in potentially as well. Yeah, I can do some maths on that. The 4 damage also one-shots Death Guard Terminators because the -1 damage armory wide. That is very true as well. So yeah, it's situational. Like I wouldn't say the Hammer of Baal is drastically ahead of the Mastercrafted hammer. And then I guess, use Death Guard Terminators as an example. They save on 2s, so the -2 from the Thunderhammer actually puts them on their 4+ invulnerable save anyway, so the additional AP you get from the Hammer of Baal is lost. So, yeah. Well, I mean, we're a little bit off topic here, but it's fine. Just don't write off the 4 damage Thunderhammer. It isn't bad. Again, yeah, against Deathwing. Against Terminators, it's generally going to be... Yeah, and I guess it's going to be good against anything that's got -1 damage as well, right? Okay, so 2 Redemptors, Infiltrators, and then he does have the Rights of War and stuff. Alright, let's do a little bit of scoring and see what we come up with. But, do you know what I've done? I think literally next week, the 1st of August, this channel becomes 1 year old. So I've been making comparison and example videos now for a year. I've never missed a week. So I guess that means I've made 51 videos. Or 51 comparisons. So it's hard for me to remember where exactly we compared that. And it'll get even harder as we continue because we ain't stopping, right? The channel will go and go and go and go and go. And yeah, all you guys in the chat that have become members over the first year, thank you so much for that. It means a lot. This channel has been a very nice thing to have. All the friends that we've made from the channel as well in the last year. I feel like before I made this channel, some nights I would come home with my blood angels and be tearing my hair out. I don't know how to make my army list better. I don't know who I can talk to about this. And I mean, you could post on Reddit, but like, you know, sometimes you post up on Reddit and no one answers you. So I made it my mission to make sure that we answer every single comment we get on the channel and see if we can make better, stronger lists. And I want to get back to winning ways. I know that things have been a little bit rough recently because, man, the sisters. I just hate that sisters can do 9 mortal wounds every turn for like 2 CP. I wish we could do that. It just seems so strong. I'm not sure they're going to get to keep that. I guess you guys in the chat can decide if you think they're going to get to keep that. But yeah, it's rough. Anyway, okay, we're going to do a little bit of scoring here. If I close the tab I've just moved it onto the other screen. Sorry. All right, Adrian, we have one OBSEC unit, which is our and I've closed objective secured. Of course I have. We have one OBSEC unit so that's going to give us 6.5, right? We do have Rites of War and Visage of Death, but I think they're on the wrong characters, so for that I'm going to take 1 point off. So I'm going to say your OBSEC is 7.5. And I think chat agreed with me that orcs doing 4 mortal wounds per attack with their dino squigs. Yeah, I mean, this is why I think I'm changing my list to include multiple ways to prevent against mortal wounds, because the mortal wound spam is just becoming ridiculous. I hang around here and I don't even play Blood Angels, but I guess Marines play similar enough to give some decent commentary. White Scars. Thanks for hanging out, JW. It's nice to see that other people get value out of this stuff. I mean, there's so much crossover with the Space Marine Codex at the moment, and you know, feel free to bring your other White Scar brothers here. The channel is a Blood Angels channel, but I sometimes talk about Flesh Terrors as well. And I don't mind what we talk about, I actually don't have someone that plays White Scars in my meta, but like I do think your chapter tactic is so strong with fall back and charge. I like it a lot. Okay. Against Hordes, we've got 2 sets of Stormbolters, 2 Icarus rocket pods, 2 Macroplasmas, and 2 Onslaught cannons. That's pretty nice. We also have the Whirlwind, but I think the wrong choice of weapon option here. I think the Castellan is better. And then the Sangori Guard have a bunch of pistols, and that is it. I guess you would have your Primaris Tet Marine with his Forge Bolter, which is basically a heavy bolter with heavy bolter with 3 shots, but it's a Tet Marine, so he's got a BS 2. And I guess there's some other firepower coming out, like the twin bolt gun on the bike, some heavy bolt pistols from the Blade Guards. I mean, if you did what Highland Phoenix said and made it 1 5-man Blade Guard squad, and you had a Tet Marine Servitor squad, you could get a heavy bolter in there because Servitors are 30 points, a heavy bolter is 5, so you would get a heavy bolter. I know it's not going to be super reliable, but if you hang out with the Tet Marine for a little while, then it's hitting on 4s, so it's not terrible. Zacharias, yeah, I mean, at some point I probably will field a Flesh Tear's army for a bit of fun. I actually don't like the second part of your chapter tactic, how it just gives you an additional 1 point of AP for the 6s. I don't know if it's that strong. Alright, so anti-horde infantry I think is probably weaker than the last 2 lists. What did we say? 7.5 on both of them. I reckon it's like a 7. We just have a little bit less firepower here. So what having less firepower means is some of our key units, like our Sangori Guard or Vanguard Veterans, may end up having to chew through chaff units, and because of that we score you down a little bit. For anti-monster, right? Let's talk 3 damage weapons: 2 Thunderhammers, 2 Infernal Pistols. The Librarian here, I guess that gives us 5. The True Redemptors, that puts us up to 9. Primaris Tetmarine has a servo thing that can do 3 damage, and then the Thunderhammer on the Captain can do 3. So about 11 3 damage weapons. A decent amount of mobile units that's going to get good character support. So I think this is a similar monster vehicle, sort of like 9. Yeah, we do community lists every week, Wildling, and if you want to submit a list for review, you go over to the community tab within the Blood Angels Commander channel, which is like the tab here, community, and in the latest community post, you just post your list in like text format, and we look at people's lists every week, we score them, we make suggestions, and my suggestions are usually equaled and or bettered by people in the chat. So thanks to everybody that's always hanging out in these streams in the chat. You guys always help us figure out how to make people's lists better. For mobility in this list, so you've got your Blade Guards that aren't mobile, your 2 Redemptors that aren't mobile, and your Tech Marine. But your Tech Marine and Redemptors are sort of moving centerboard with the Blade Guard. So I'd say it's kind of irrelevant that they aren't super mobile. So probably like an 8-5 here. Mobility I don't think is a problem. Specialization, so we have our Librarian, who's the chief, so we've got Denies. We have the Whirlwind, so we have the Fight Last. We have slightly less units here for doing actions with, and I think that's maybe one of the biggest problems. I guess this is maybe why he's got the Blade Guard as 2 units, as potentially infantry units that can do actions here. You're not really going to be wanting to do actions with your Vanguard Veterans and your Sanguinary Guard, right? So, maybe the Blade Guard, the idea of splitting them in 2 is so that we got a few more units to do actions. And then, what did we say? We've got Fight Last, we've got Denies, we've got 3 damage weapons. We don't have any mortal wound protection, bar the Sanguinary Priest. And then I guess there were some question marks on some of the relics. I don't know if I like Rites of War and Visage of Death on this Priest. I also think starting on 5 CP is kind of rough. Like, I was starting my lists on 5 CP, and it felt super limiting 5. Like, I actually started for a little while with 4 CP, and 4 CP felt like I had no, like, it just felt like I had no CP. 5 CP felt like I almost had CP. So now I think my new list, I want to say my new list starts with 6. It doesn't seem like much, but 1 CP it does actually feel like a lot of difference throughout the course of the game. You start on 4. I think I was on an 11 game win streak on this channel with the 4 CP list, Maverick, but literally the only stratagem that I used was Transhuman and Suppression Fire. Right, like that. It felt like that was all that I had CP for, because if you think about it, you use Suppression Fire 3 or 4 times throughout the battle, and you get 5 more doing the battle, you literally only have 1 CP a turn, right? Because you're sort of committing to, like, I need to suppress this unit, I need to suppress that unit. And Suppression Fire is so strong. I guess in some armies you don't use it that much, but against some enemies I found myself like if a Mortarian's on the board, you will 100% want to suppress Mortarion on any turn that he can possibly make a charge. If Nightbringer's on the board, you're going to want to suppress the Nightbringer any turn he can make a charge, because you want to make sure that your units do maximum damage before they get picked off, right? And they will get picked off, don't get me wrong. If Mortarion charges, like, I think in my game Mortarion charged, sorry, it was the Nightbringer. Nightbringer charged 5 Blade Guard Veterans. I am fully expecting to lose those 5 Blade Guard Veterans. The Suppression Fire lets them attack first, do those 3 critical wounds in the enemy's phase, and make it much easier for me to drop them. So, yeah, so in some games you'll find yourself doing a lot of Suppression Fire. I guess there could be an argument there for dropping the Whirlwind and running the Judiciar with the Selfless Valor Warlord trait, and I know that some high-level competitive players have done that. It just makes it much more difficult, because the placement of your Judiciar needs to be, like, so on point, because he needs to be exactly with your army in the right place to make sure you get that Fight Last. And And you're going to lose 2 CP straight away from Forlorn Fury, so you're starting the game on 2 CP. No, thank you. Alright, let me finish scoring up this list. I actually think the specialization is pretty on point here, so I think it's like a 9. I don't have any issues with this. I think my main issue is a little bit lack of shooting, and I think the lack of shooting, the question mark around these Rites of War, Visions of Death, and I think I do disagree with taking both a Tech Marine and a Sangori Priest. I think where we are now, I think you double down. You either go infantry heavy and run the Sangori Priest, or you go sort of dreadnought heavy and run the Tech Marine. And I've made both those lists, right? Like, I spent, I don't know what night it was, maybe Friday night. I spent Friday night making 2 new lists, one that's infantry heavy and one that's dreadnought heavy. And I'm going to try both of them over the next month. It's about a month till I go to this tournament, a month and a half. So I'm going to run both lists over the next month on the channel. Monday nights, 7:30, you guys know the drill. And one of those lists, I think, will be the one that I take to the tournament. Yeah, so anyway, that is this list. So I think it's a pretty good list, Adrian. Pretty good score. And, if you have any questions, obviously you're not in the chat today, but if you have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments below. All right, and then we're going to move into the last list for today, which is DKing. Let me just update the top of the screen to say that we're on list 4. DKing. And yeah, if we do have anyone new in here, then please consider either liking or subscribing on the video. It's always much appreciated. And if you are subscribed to the channel, there's a little bell underneath where you are subscribed. You need to click that bell and change notifications from personalized to all. Personalized means that YouTube decides if you see any new videos we put up. All means that basically every new video that I put up will appear in your news feed. I assume that if you're a Blood Angels player and you like this stuff, you want to see all the new videos. So, yeah, you want to change your notifications to all. I like including a unit of 2 company vets to do actions and raise banners and deploy scramblers so you don't lose combat from valuable units. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, JW, because a unit of company veterans for like 40 points or like 44 points is a lot cheaper than like a squad of infiltrators or something for 120 points to do the same one action. And it is annoying that the Judy CR isn't mobile. If he was mobile, I guess, like if he was on a bike or if he could fly. Do you know what? Maybe that, Highland Phoenix, we always talk about like how they could get Blood Angels to be really competitive again. What if we could get a Judas CR for Blood Angels and give him a jump pack? That would be very interesting. I would be very excited about that. Maybe you could get his own unique Blood Angels model with some of those cool Stormcast wings. That might be where it's at. Alright, so we're going to look at this, and this is speaking of how a few minutes ago we were talking about White Scars, I guess we're speaking about a successor chapter today, and it is the Red Scorpions, and I'm wondering if I actually don't know what the chapter. I'm going to need help from chat here. What is the chapter tactic for Red Scorpions? Or hey JW, thank you, man. If it's a successor chapter, he may have chosen like his traits, right? Hey Andrew, thanks as well. Appreciate the subscribing. I was going to say, where is this chapter tactic? Alright, I'm gonna have to Google this. Like, he says it's a Blood Angel successor is what he said here. It's in the Forge World book? Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. Let's see. Red Scorpions. Can I open this? Alright, does anyone have the Forge World book? and can tell me what the chapter tactic is for a Red Scorpion. Do they have a chapter tactic? Hold fire, you're just checking. Alright, thank you. Purity above all? Okay, 1 second, let me see. Check your Discord PMs. Alright, 1 second, thank you. Oh, this is it. I think I just found it. I don't even know how I got this link up. Is this what you sent me? There we go. So they are, quote unquote, an ultramarine successor. But any tactical squad or veteran sergeant with chapter tactic Red Scorpions may be upgraded to a member of the chapter's apothecarium and upgraded to carry a Narcium at no additional points. The Narcium is what gives the 6+ feel no pain aura, right? And fortune and content models with the chapter tactic may reroll failed pinning tests. Wow, these are Horus Heresy rules. There's no such thing as pinning tests. Alright, we can look at the list, but I'm still confused by chapter tactic. Alright, well, his list starts with Cassian Sabius, who is... We'll come back to the chapter tactic, I guess. That's a little annoying that he didn't write it down. I have the chapter tactic page in front of me from the Space Marine Codex, you know, the one where you... Like this one, where you pick all the different stuff. Like knowledge is power and stuff. I assume that as a Blood Angels, it can then just run Blood Angels chapter tactic or space. Oh, so maybe he's just running the Blood Angels chapter tactic. Is that what he's doing? So he's running. Oh, right. Maybe that's what he's doing. He's just running our standard Red Thirst, right? I think you hit the name on. I think that's what he's doing. All right, let's look at. I don't even know this character, Cassan Sabius. He's a Forge World character. What does he look like? Oh wow, he's proper old school. Okay, so he's running Cassan Sabius. So he is basically the chapter master of the Red Scorpions. He has I guess it's like a power sword. Mastercrafted power sword, almost like a D3 power sword, but against vehicles and monsters it gets 2 times strength rather than the normal +1 strength. He can make the standard chapter master within 6 inches reroll their hits, and he can make a Red Scorpion's core or Red Scorpion's character unit within 6. Until the next of the command phase, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of model in that unit. That's pretty cool. And his Warlord trait is add 1 to leadership characteristic of units within 6. Alright, that's pretty bad. Yeah, Inheritors of the Primarch means he's running the Blood Angels chapter tactic. Thank you, Trek PPP. I appreciate that. Okay, so we can review it based on the fact he's running Red Thirst, right? So he's got Cassan Sabius. I imagine that was going to be his Warlord, but it's not. He then has a Librarian Dreadnought with Quickening, Unleash Rage, Wings. It's upgraded Chief Librarian with Psychic Mastery, and he's Hero of the Chapter. I kind of like that. I like the +1 to the Psychic test. It makes everything a bit more reliable. He's kind of a beat stick, but with the ability to buff an enemy unit for an allied unit for exploding 6s. The Sanguinary Priest has Artisan of War, and he's been given Artificer Armor, so he's got the 2+5+ save, or 2+5++ save. and he's also been given the Teeth of Terra. I generally don't like making the Sanguinary Priest a combat character. I think he should stay out of combat. I mean, giving him the Teeth of Terra does give him a very good number of attacks, right? Because I think that puts him up at like 8 attacks, is it, on the charge? Because he's got 8 attacks on the charge. So, I mean, it's not bad. And he is a WS of 2. But generally, I like to keep my Sanguinary Priest out of combat. And I think if I was going to give him armor, I would give him armor Indomitus, because it gives him the same 2+ save, but it gives him that one phase of 3 double plus, and I feel like he's more like a 5++ is unreliable. A 3++ is very reliable. Sure, it's only for one phase, but I imagine it's going to be a critical phase that he takes a lot of damage. So I feel like Armor Indomitus is a better choice here, and also gives him 1 more wound. He can heal himself. He does have that Feel No Pain, so that 1 more wound with a Feel No Pain is actually pretty good as well. Yeah, you'd have to check with the tournament organizer, but I think this is valid to run the Red Scorpions like this. So he has 2 Assault Intercessor squads and 1 Infiltrator squad. We then have a 5-man Bladeguard Veterans. We have a 51-point Company Veterans, Lightning Claw and Storm Shield, Chainsword and Storm Shield. Makes sense. Used for objectives. We have the 10-man Death Company. Some of the tournaments exclude Forge World. The tournament I'm going to in September actually says no Forge World units. So some tournaments just exclude Forge World, but I mean, in some ways Forge World is a little bit pay to win, right? Like, you pay more, but the stuff can be very good sometimes, so there's something in it, I suppose. 2 Thunder Hammers, an Infernal Fist, an Infernal Pistol, and a Power Fist. So 10-man Death Company that's likely going to Forlorn Fury. The Redemptor Dreadnought, Stormbolter, Plasma, Onslaught Cannon, 7 Sanguinary Guard, 3 Swords, 4 Axes, and then 2 squads of Eliminators, all with the Bolt Sniper Rifles, and a Radicator squad with the Melt Rifles. And he hasn't put in a list and sees what I think. Okay. Recommended for Red Scorpions are Ultramarine successors. It is recommended, but I think it is valid to be Blood Angels if you want it to be, because they are inheriting the Warlord trait from the Primarch. I think this is valid. Anyway, he's sent me a huge big bit of text, so let's read over it and see what he's saying. This list as I took into an RTT this past Sunday, went 3-0 and came in second. I thought the other Blood Angels might be interested, and I'm 5-0 with the list overall. Core of the list is built around the potential turn 1 charge of the Death Company with stacking buffs on them to delete as much as possible and tie up everything else. Cassie and Sabius can give a unit +1 attack, so with the Sanguinary Priest and the Librarian Dreadnought, the Death Company will have 6 attacks with power weapons, 7 with Chainsword, rerolling hits and exploding 6s, extra AP from the Assault Doctrine. I'm able to get all the buffs by deploying on the line with the characters, the company vets hiding within 3 inches. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This forces my opponent to do one of 2 things: deploy as normal and risk a 50% of losing anything that I want to die, or 2, deploy far back. If one, either I win with the Death Company or I redeploy the Death. I think he's saying if first, right? So if he goes first, either I win with the Death Company or I redeploy the Death Company somewhere in cover or unobscured, making Tumblr charges still a threat, but I can at least keep one objective threatened easily by them. If second, if case 2 rather, I will very likely still be able to charge them anyway, especially on short edge deployments if I go first, or if I have cost them a ton of movement, which means I can dominate with primaries. And at the tournament, I did well with Banners and Relentless. I have 2 Eliminators and 1 Infiltrator unit that can steal ground to allow me to dominate the primaries early on if they deploy defensively. In either case, with 9 CP, I'm completely willing to spend 4 in the Death Company to Forlorn and then give them a 5 double plus, right? So he's going to use Refusal to Die in the Death Company to either make them survive or eat up the shooting for the rest of my army. Otherwise, for the rest of the game, I have Sanguinary Guard to follow up the Death Company, moving up to midboard turn 1, and for turn 3, and then Blade Guard to hold the middle. Not as much shooting, I guess, as you would like. Eradicators and Redemptor, and to some extent Eliminators, though. They're there to hopefully force the opponent to have a hard time with deployment, which of this tournament is awful helpful when you put them on the clock that can lead to mistakes or defensive deployments. If it's of any interest, this list be off on Meta, Necron list, Tyrannids, Death Guards, Salamanders, and Admech, an almost identical list won the tournament, by the way. Okay. And it does make a lot of sense. You know, you take that Dead Man Death Company, you take Chapter Master rerolls on them, you put them in the Assault Doctrine straight away, you buff them with Unleash Rage from a reliable Psychic test because of the Psychic Mastery. So at that point, you're in Assault Doctrine, so each Death Company with Chainsword is getting 6 attacks. They can reroll all their hits, they can get Exploding 6s, they can obviously Forlorn Fury, so they basically have 24 inches, so basically 24 inches and then charge range. So you're potentially talking like the enemy need to deploy 36 inches away from the Death Company. Probably any enemy within 30 inches are pretty scared, and the Cassian Sabius rule, right? Cassian Sabius is not a character that I run myself, but this purity of aspect, action and intent is pretty darn good. Select one friendly Red Scorpion's core unit within 6 until the start of the next command phase, add 1 to attacks. So you add +1 to the attacks of that Death Company unit, and yeah, so what was that Death Company? It was like 7 bolter and chainswords, right? So that's 45 chainsword attacks, rerolling hits, and then I guess 12 Thunderhammer attacks, rerolling hits, and 6 Power Fist attacks, rerolling hits. Yeah, it's pretty darn strong. I don't know if there's much to be said about it, except it's totally valid. You want to run 10 Death Company on the front line to absolutely charge in and delete stuff. I feel like, yeah, I mean, it really comes down to positioning and placement on turn 1. I think there are lists that counter this. You know, like if the enemy has a sort of bubble where they can have like fight last, and they can for some way make this Death Company unit fight last and like heroically intervene with some things, then I think it could do, you know, it could neuter this list straight away. This is one of the reasons that I stay away from Forlorn Fury. I get it's really strong. I get it can do a ton of damage. I'm just kind of... I think Forlorn Fury goes one of 2 ways, right? Like, it does exactly what it says it's going to do, and you absolutely smash through the enemy, or the enemy have the ability to counter it somehow, and then it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and it puts you on the back foot for the rest of the game. He would be able to use the Forlorn Fury and put the 1 attack on the Death Company. Why wouldn't he, Mark? So, a similar list to this one in the tournament as well, he said. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. And how many 3 damage weapons does he have? He's got Eradicators. He's got a couple here. So that's like 7. I guess 8, 9 maybe. And then Cassian, he's got a D3 one. Yeah, so it's about 10 3 damage. Well, because it's a 10-man Death Company, Mark, he can daisy chain 2 models backwards. Or like 3 models backwards, so they're within 6. You need to be within 6 for all the other buffs anyway, right? So you need to chain a couple of models back for the Chapter Master rerolls, for the Blood Chalice. So basically, a few Death Company are right forward 12 inches. I wouldn't say it's not that tough to do it. You just need to be in range of 2 other models, right? Exploding 6s means that every time you roll a 6 to hit, you get an additional attack. No, you really wouldn't lose that much. It's the front unit will still be 24 inches forward, right? Sure, the back unit will only be 18 inches forward after you've done your first turn move, but remember, you do get to consolidate 3 inches, or pile in 3 inches, sorry. And remember, you just need to be within half an inch. So potentially 1 or 2 models might not be able to get into the fight, but like it's pretty minor, right? Like if the enemy, let's say the enemy's 30 inches away from you, I'd argue every single Death Company will still be able to get in range, because you roll your charge roll. Let's say you need to do a 6-inch. Well, you would need to do a 5-inch charge. No, let me do that again. So you move forward the front guy 12 inches. Then you move another 12 inches. So now you're 6 inches away from the enemy. So you would need to roll basically 5 on your charge. So you get +1 from your red thirst rule for the charge roll. So you need to roll a 4. So let's say you roll an average roll of 7 or something. If you roll an average roll of 7 and the guys at the back are moving 8, then 100% they'll be able to move. So they were only 18 inches forward. They get to move 8, so now they're up to 26. They get to pile in 3 inches, so now they're at 29. At that point, they are within half an inch of the front line of combat. So you get everybody in with your 10 Death Company chained back. It can definitely be done. And it can be done pretty effectively. And I guess in this case, this guy's gone 5-0, right? So he's proving every game it can be done. And yeah, I mean, some of it depends on going first, I guess. But some of it can just also depend on the enemy will deploy defensively. You know, like, let's say there's an objective on the right-hand side of the map. If you put the Death Company down and the enemy know that there's a good chance that you can make that across with the Forlorn Fury, and then, you know, usually the enemy's not going to be stupid. If you deploy your Death Company next to the Sanguinary Priest, next to the Chapter Master, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so they're going to chain the Death Company and give them full rerolls and put them in the Assault Doctrine. You're going to find the enemy player is going to have to deploy defensively, right? Like, they just have to, because otherwise they just risk losing the whole squad before they get to do anything. And sometimes it can just be too much, right? Another 6 stratagem, or another 6 strategy you can do with this, and I talked about it before in one of my other streams. Let me put my camera on to show you this, but this is pretty sick as well, right? Let me grab a couple of models from behind me right here, right? Imagine this bike is an enemy, right, over here. And imagine that we did that first turn charge with the Death Company, and it went amazing. And we wiped out like a bunch of enemy units. But the Death Company took a lot of firepower, right? And we weren't feeling confident about keeping them on the board. So we pay 1 CP to Upon Wings of Fire and remove the Death Company from the board, right? In the next turn, the Death Company now can re-arrive from Deep Strike, right? So they re-arrive here, and let's say in the first turn they lost like a bunch of units. Pretend this is 9 inches. So he's going to need his 8-inch charge to get into combat, right? If I can get my Sanguinary Priest next to the Death Company somehow, I can then resurrect a model within coherency within 2, and I can place that. Pretend this is 2 inches. I can place that model 2 inches forward, plus that model's base size. So from arriving back with the Death Company in turn 3, for example, I've now given myself, like, I imagine this would be like a 5-inch charge or something after arriving back from Upon Wings of Fire. So you can. It's a very situational play. You can only do if you've lost a model from a jump pack unit, right? Lost a model from a jump pack unit, and you've got a Sanguinary Priest on the board, and you Upon Wings of Fire. When they arrive back, if you can sync up with your priest and resurrect a model, and you put that resurrected model down in the right position, it's kind of awesome. Anyway, all right, let's do some scoring for this list. So 3 troop choices, and one of which is Phobos. And when we do troop choices, 3 troop choices, at least one is Phobos, that's like an 8. Anti-infantry horde. I guess, like he did say, his firepower was a little less than he wanted, but the Death Company threat is seriously good here. This is probably this Castian Sabius. Nothing on that model looks great except that +1 that you can give to the Death Company, which is kind of crazy. So I would say, let's go with let's say it's an 8.5. No, I'd say 8, right? if the Death Company can make the charge into the right thing in turn 1, this list can, like you said, it can delete just about anything off the board. I find it 12 Thunderhammers re-rolling, that's 9 hits. 6 Power Fists re-rolling, that's 4.5 hits. And then 45 Chainswords re-rolling, that's like 35 hits. With a +1 to wound, it's a crazy amount of hits and a crazy amount of damage that it can dish out in turn 1. Anti-Vehicle Monster is probably fine. I mean, there's a little bit less firepower. A lot of this list is going to come down to the strength of that Death Company. If it does the thing it needs to do, it will be amazing. Yeah, I mean, it is different, and this is why I don't run lists like this, Mark, because they're too swingy for me, right? You get first turn, you make that first turn charge, you delete an enemy unit, you've got a huge advantage, and you're in the enemy's backline messing stuff up straight away. All your other units can now move up freely because the enemy need to deal with that Death Company, and it can win the game. The other side of the story is that you don't get first turn, so the Death Company end up in no man's land. Or, like, I actually fought against a Tau player, and Tau's Overwatch is a real problem against. This was before we had Suppression Fire in the Whirlwind. This list doesn't have a way to turn off Overwatch. Iron Hands as well actually can Overwatch on 4s. Ultramarines have that Overwatch thing where everybody around them overwatches as well. So I think it goes both ways, right? This list could do absolutely amazing, but it could also get in a position where, like, you can't do this strategy with this list because the enemy has, like, really, really effective Overwatch. How do you now use the list, right? I've played against Andrew when he had a Leviathan Dreadnought for Iron Hands. And they can Overwatch on 4s, and he's got it armed with, like, the Volkite cannons and Twin Storm Cannon. So he's getting about 30 shots at you, and every shot that you fail to save is a dead Marine. You could lose, if he's getting 30 shots hitting on 4s, arguably he's going to be wounding on 3s. You're going to have to take 10 saves, and every failed save is a dead Marine. Death Company will only save against Iron Hands, it would be 4s or 5s. So you'd probably be looking at losing 6 of these guys in first turn, and I don't know if 4 of them, if there's only 4 left, do they kill a Leviathan Dreadnought? And if they don't, then you know full well that Iron Hands player is going to repair it with Master of the Forge, and he's going to shoot you again in combat because you can shoot in combat now when he's awakened it, so it's +1 to hit. So there's a lot. I don't like running these lists, right? I think there's too many. Like, I'd rather win the battle strategically, but, like, don't get me wrong, this list could actually wreck me. Like, it could wreck probably all of us if he gets to go first, if he has the movement, if he has the positioning, things could go really well for it. The mobility of this list, I guess, is very good. Eliminators and Eradicators aren't mobile. The Blade Guard and the Company Veterans. Oh, do you know what? We've got Assault, so actually mobility is a little bit lower. Which is surprising, actually. I thought with the Death Company being set up for this, I thought you would actually want to maybe have, like, some Vanguard Veterans here. Maybe even lose some of these Assault Intercessors. Run a double patrol or something. Actually, you can't because he's got too many elites. I mean, you could run a double patrol and take some more fast attack. Like, you could get some Inceptors in here or something. Yeah, and then Specialization. So it had like 9 3 damage weapons. It doesn't have any Fight Last. It doesn't have that much mobile obsec, but I mean, yeah, Specialization's a tough one. It's actually kind of okay. I thought it was going to struggle. I mean, the only thing it's really missing is the Fight Last, right? Because it's got the Psychic Denies. I still think it needs Helix Gauntlets, Infiltrators to maintain some Red Scorpion fluff. Yeah, I mean it's a different list, but I think it's pretty strong. I reckon it's probably a 9 on here. I think it probably ties up Anthony's list. Yeah, I would say it's gimmicky is probably the wrong word. It's an alpha strike list, Mark, is probably how I would put it, right? Like if he alpha strikes correctly, it can be massive. But if the alpha strike doesn't go off, then not so much. I was going to say, what did he paid one CP for... Oh, Quake Bolts on the Blade Guard Veteran Sergeant. Okay. I was going to say, actually, with that Death Company going in for such a turn 1 strike, it might actually be better putting Quake Bolts on Eliminators here. I know Reziel said that it was bad earlier, but having that 36-inch range and being able to get a +1 on the squad that hits, that's ridiculous. I'd say his non-mobile Chapter Master is a big downside. Not huge, but significant. How good is Cassian in combat? I mean, he's not bad. I guess like you'd have 7 attacks for Blood Angels. He's basically got a mastercrafted power sword with D3 damage, but 2 times strength against vehicles. I guess the mobility of that, yeah. I mean, maybe we need to knock him down 1 more point on mobility, right? Like, maybe it's a 7 on mobility. I think the specialization's fine, but yeah, I guess his Chapter Master isn't mobile either. But no, I think this is... You know, we occasionally see people that like the 10-man Death Company. Thanks for hanging out, Levi. The proof in his consistency of wins, he knows how to get the most out of the list, obviously. He's not going first all those games and he's still getting the win. That's very true. I don't... Who did he say he beat? He beat Necrons, Tyranids, Death Guard, Salamanders, Admech. It's hard to know. Like, Necrons can usually do decent with Overwatch, because they can run like those 20-man blobs, and the 20-man blobs, if you have them with the Gauze Reapers, you would get 40 shots. So the Gauze Reapers, again, you know, they can be pretty good on Overwatch. I think against some armies, there's going to be big problems, I guess, with this list. And I guess some armies, it's just going to run them over. I like the synergy within Cassian and the Death Company. And I guess the fact he's making the wins is very true. I think, you know, when we score lists, anything over 40 points is really solid, right? So this is a 41-point score. Maybe it's a 40.5. I still think I prefer Kevin. I think Kevin's is the notable strongest list of the day. But yeah, a cool list submitted anyway. We're 12 minutes over time here, I guess, guys. So I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Armor and Domus instead of Artifice Armor and Priest. Yeah, I think I said that, Highland, maybe when you guys were all discussing the chapter tactics stuff. But no, I think it's a cool list. I have a bunch of Death Company painted. I want to paint a few more with Infernal Pistols and Power Fists. Maybe I'll add them to my list and maybe give myself the option of doing something like this. But it is a big commitment. It is 300 points. But sometimes... And I guess to do this effectively, you probably need to be playing a battalion, right? Because you're going to need to start with like a lot of CP, because the Death Company are potentially going to take 4 of your CP in turn 1. But yeah, it's a tough one. Anyway, thanks guys for watching today. I really hope you enjoyed the stream. We're going to be back tomorrow night about 7:30, so about an hour and 15 minutes from now tomorrow. And I think we're playing Death Guard. I've asked Colin for the list, and I think it's his tournament list. So like I said, I'm trying to get my tournament list sorted. Colin will be there with hopefully his Death Guard tournament list. We are in the same team at this tournament, so hopefully, we're trying to build strong lists that we can learn and synergize off each other. If you enjoyed today's stream, consider hitting like or subscribe to the channel. If you want to submit a list for a future review, please feel free to do that. The queue for members right now, I think, is like around 2 weeks. The queue for non-members is around 9 weeks, but I mean, it is what it is. After the stream, I post all the lists into the chat, into the comments. Trek, you can't post the lists into the comments while the stream's still going. I don't know why. So I always do that a little bit later on the Sunday. And next Sunday, I'm actually out of town next week, like Monday to Sunday. So I won't be live next week with like a hobby hangout on Saturday, which I normally am. I should still have the normal videos going out like on a Tuesday or a Friday, but Sunday's show might be like much later in the evening next Sunday. So if you don't see the show appear like for the normal time of 4 o'clock, then just assume that I'm not home yet. I'll be traveling. My daughter gets car sick if we travel anywhere that's more than like 10 minutes away. We've got to travel like a few hours. So I assume we're stopping like literally every 10 minutes unless we want a car full of spew. So if that's what's going to happen, Sunday's show next week might go out at like 10 p.m. once we're home and the family's away to bed. So just be aware that if you don't see the stream next Sunday at the normal time, that is why. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Hopefully we'll catch some of you tomorrow on the game against Death Guard. And a few more videos coming out this week as always, so stay tuned for that. Talk to you guys soon. If you haven't checked out yesterday's tier video, by the way, you should totally check that out. People are loving the tier lists, and I actually changed the playlists on the channel. So if you're on the YouTube channel, just the Blind Angels Commander channel, if you scroll down now, there should be a playlist with all right at the top here, tier lists. You can get access to all the tier lists right here. So if you want to check those videos out, they're pretty cool. Right, enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. I'll speak to you guys soon. By the blood are we made. Peace.